Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable, ongoing reality. Well, good evening and welcome to Real Talk to Becoming. My name is Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lena Ariel. Thank you for joining us tonight. We know you guys have other things to do, but we appreciate you guys coming along for the ride here as we get going.
As we talk about nothing and nothing we talk about are all the things that are being exposed in this new world that we're living in. I just don't recognize the planet anymore.
It feels very dystopian.
Yeah.
In a way that, it's like, are we living this reality? Is this really what all of us as a collective have decided that we were going to agree with?
We have created this, no doubt. And it's getting interesting,
It is.
As we were talking, I think it was this morning, mentioning about how the planet is birthing all these realms and like things that we are creating for ourselves. I don't know if you want to mention anything yet, or not yet. We'll probably do it like when we're there and doing it. But it's just bizarre. Like just today, the little meeting or big meeting that Trump and Zelensky, and then Mr. Boy there, that's Vance, but brown-nosing Vance, kind of made everything go south. It was going so well. They were like kissing each other, agreeable and kissing each other's you know what, and then all of a sudden, some idiot asked Zelensky why he's not wearing a suit.
And it's so sad because it's such a petty question. And it seemed like it was one of these right-wing Christian fundamentalist types,
Of course.
And it was like, he doesn't realize the backstory between, why Zelensky, who has literally fought alongside his countrymen, and in honor of them is why he wears the uniform that he wears, to honor them every day since 2022, I think, when their country was invaded. He has chosen to be in solidarity with his countrymen that are fighting.
Something that
freedom.
Neither Trump nor Vance would ever. I mean, I cannot even imagine them in a battlefield.
Trump was a draft dodger.
I know.
Vance is a pretty boy
by yelling. Yelling. He thinks that's being a man.
He thinks that he's doing Ukraine a favor. Ukraine wants peace. That's what they want. Yeah. And he thinks that he can extort a country of their own natural resources, of the planet, of its resources.
And that's all Trump
wants. In exchange for what? The bully to protect?
Yeah, and it's not like they're going to be much protecting because he's for Russia.
Yeah. He thinks Russia's a good, country, that they're really doing good work.
Yeah.
And that they both just need to stop fighting. But it wasn't Ukraine
who started it.
It was Russia.
But it's the same thing as what's going on in Israel, between Gaza and Israel. It's the same story, different countries.
They dehumanize the population.
We stand by the side of the bullies all the time. You know?
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's beyond me. It's like he also had some sort of meeting with the president of France, and he also lied, bold-faced.
Yeah, he said that Europe had some loans or something that they didn't pay, and the Prime Minister of France, Macron, said, no, that's not true. This is actually what happened. We were responsible. We were fiscally, responsible for what we took and what we invested in Ukraine. It's really sad, because the president looked very unpresidential today, and he made a mockery of the dignity of not just political office in the White House or in the Oval Office, but in political office around the world. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've seen the lack of decorum, the lack of diplomatic skills as we saw on display.
I know.
Just this afternoon.
Embarrassing. Totally embarrassing.
It is. It's an embarrassment.
He's an embarrassment. I mean, this whole administration is a total embarrassment. It's like the mafia, like every person that Trump has put into place, like playing chess, is little Clooney, who are just going to yes him to death. And it's going to literally blow up in his face.
It really is.
But
it really is.
People voted for him. Like today, we saw this one girl that works for the national parks, was it? And she voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And lost her job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are going, what? We voted for this man who doesn't really care about us because he cares about the millionaires and the elitists and about making money and making the deal, which he's a terrible businessman, but he thinks he's good. And, people are getting fired. People that voted for him are having to pay the price. So it's like, I don't feel sorry.
Literally mountains of trash accumulating in our national parks now because the simple jobs can't be done anymore. The simple work that people, were doing can't be done.
It's crazy.
And who's going to suffer? It's always us.
Yeah. And that brings me to the name of the show, The Shuffle in Human Existence. And like, we have to like go back to the true history and see the evolution that humankind has taken place. Some of it by the hands of the archons, those that are responsible for this project we call Earth. But what it refers to is the process of genetic recombination that occurs during human reproduction, where genes from both parents are mixed and matched, resulting in a unique genetic combination in each offspring, essentially shuffling the genetic deck and contributing to the diversity within a population. This is a key mechanism that drives evolution. Now, before we go on with that, I wanted to think that, how they say that we have both good and evil inside of us, and somehow, some way, that balance of the creators that put us together, there's some good and bad, good wolf, bad wolf, and we're maybe learning how to balance ourselves, and that's part of the ascension, part of the awakening, that's taking place right now.
So key points about this quote-unquote shuffle process. During the formation of sperm and egg cells, meiosis, chromosomes from the mother and father pair up and exchange segments of DNA through a process called crossing over, effectively mixing their genetic information. And the result, each sperm and egg cell carries a unique combination of genes, leading to diverse offspring when they combine during fertilization.
And think about how intricate this really is. You get a random of all the sperm that comes out of the ejaculation, and there's just the one egg. Usually, sometimes it might be a couple. That's why you have twins. But this meiosis that takes place creates this cascade of different characteristics that it's almost like doing a Russian roulette, or like the roulette thing that you don't know what you're going to get. And this exchange is what causes the process, which is called crossing over. And this genetic information, this mix, is what creates the personality, the looks, the different characteristics that a person has, and that I find that to be very, very interesting and like mind blowing when you think about it. Importance, it's like we really don't have our own, like our own autonomy, our own way, because it's
kind
like
of been predetermined
for us. If your father was an alcoholic and your mom was an avid liar, that kind of, combines into yourself, and as much as you might want to try to change or whatever, I mean, these are things that are innate, deep rooted in us. And, it's just, I find it amazing, but important for evolution. This genetic shuffling allows for adaptation to changing environments by creating new variations within a population, which natural selection can then act upon. And I think that's where we're coming right now on the cusp. This genetic shuffling has created this adaptation to where we are today. I mean, you look at a human 100 years ago and you look at a human now, very different human.
The surviving humans from our ancient past had to be much more hardy than the humans that are existing now. Like, 2025 humanity versus, 1800 humanity, I think is a different caliber of human, because what we have now, I don't think if something catastrophic happened on the planet, I don't think 2025 humanity can find their way out of a paper sack.
Oh gosh, no. I mean,
they'd be worried about, just general things. I mean, everybody's on prescription. So,
and the coping mechanism is nil to none.
Once their drugs can't be given to them, most of humanity can't function.
You take the phone away, there goes the ability to be able to find a place. I mean, there's just a very different human. And we were watching this film that was in the movie theater, and actually it was such a bomb that they had on TV, about the Olympics. And I was looking at the individuals during that time. Was it 1970s?
1972.
Yeah. And it's like very different human. They didn't have the iPhones. They didn't have any cell phones for that matter. It was still a rotary phone. There was just the nervous system was very different. The way they handle things. You looked at men, they had a very different look about them, different way of behaving. You looked at women, the same thing. Now it's just, I don't know. I just don't know. And I'm lost for words, but it's really disheartening to see what's actually taking place. I wanted to share. I don't know. I was noticing that too. No, Sabo. Okay, so this is the latest. I mean, Trump has nothing else better to do than to enforce all these things, and the places that are not enforcing it are getting their funding removed, and it's just like there's so much to take care of. But his main thing in his 30-something days in office has been to attack the LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
So the ignorance of this administration, who believes that they understand biology because they think they know biology, right? And what it means to be a man or a woman. I'm going to ask you, what do you think you have nipples if you're a man? And that, that line that you have on your scrotum, that's just a reminder of your once female status in utero when you were inside your mother's womb. When your vulva closed to encase your once ovaries that dropped to become your testes.
Sex is just a control mechanism of the archons, whose main leader, Yahweh, established laws to enslave humanity. Rebellion against this system is the only way to gain back your power. Say no to discrimination against the LGBTQ community, and don't be a child and try to dictate what bathrooms other people go to. True freedom is being free.
I mean, think about it. Who cares who's in the bathroom? You know, it's like people go to the bathroom because they have to take care of business. You know?
I mean, they say they want to do it to protect women. And honestly, most of these men are absolutely disrespectful to women anyway.
Oh, yeah. And
You know what I mean?
And in a little bit, I'm going to show you and talk about what they did to this woman because she was speaking out in one of these, I don't know, what is it, like a
Public hearing.
public hearing or something. And they literally assaulted a person that I think she's in Congress or Senate or has some sort of position, a young woman at that, and they were just assaulting her. They don't care about women. They don't care about children. They care about their power taking over, continuing to RAPE this planet, just like in the movie Avatar. That's exactly. I mean, what is it with Trump? All he wants to go into Gaza and create a strip and just build and develop. He wants to take the minerals from Ukraine. You know, we have a lot of oil, we don't have a lot of precious earth.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this planet is not for your taking. I know that that's all you guys have done from the very beginning who discovered America. America didn't need discovering. There are people living here, indigenous people that took care of the land. You guys don't do that. All you do is pillage and do horrible things, you know? And, you know, karma is coming our way. There's so much harm that has been done throughout the world by this empire, by this destructive force that has just, I mean, I don't have words sometimes. But, you know, we're going to shift a little bit here and talk about, you know, scientists' claims most of us are bisexual, just like our primitive relatives in the jungle. I mean, this whole religiosity that has polluted our planet with their holier than thou attitude, thinking that people have to be a certain way and so primitive, not primitive, prime and proper, and what's the other word I'm thinking when somebody's don't, you know, they're so like prude, yeah. And it's natural to run around naked. We make it dirty, you know. It's natural to love who you want to love, and it's natural to express yourself as you feel fit. It's something we've done throughout history. So Dr. Jason Hodgson, an anthropologist and evolutionary geneticist at Anglia Ruskin University, thinks most people are in the bisexual range, much like our primitive relatives living wild in the jungle. He says sexuality is a spectrum from exclusively heterosexual at one end through the bisexual range to exclusively homosexual at the other end. Heterosexuality and homosexuality are at the extremes of this spectrum. So most people should be somewhere in the middle in that they have sex with both men and women.
I predict most people should actually be bisexual, Dr. Hodgson told Mail Online. The genes that influences same-sex sexual behavior are probably just genes that influence general sociality, and people in the middle of the range of variation are probably better at all social relationships.
Sexuality is a spectrum, means that a person's sexual orientation is not limited to just heterosexual or homosexual, but rather exists on a range with many possibilities in between, allowing for fluidity and diverse experience of attraction across different genders. Essentially, people can fall anywhere along the spectrum depending on their individual romantic and sexual attraction to others.
Key points about the sexuality spectrum is not binary. Unlike a simple straight or gay classification, the spectrum acknowledges that sexuality is more complex and can include varying degrees of attraction to different genders.
Fluidity is a person's sexual orientation may shift over time, meaning they might identify differently at different points in their life. And I've seen that a lot with women who were married and their husbands died or they got divorced, and all of a sudden they started becoming wanting that female company and really wanting to have a relationship with a person of their same sex, or the same thing happens to men. I mean, it's fluid. It's something that, depending on the time of your life, the situations you've been in, that it could actually change.
Individual experiences, the spectrum allows people to express their unique sexual attraction without feeling confined to rigid categories.
Example of how the spectrum is used: someone might identify as mostly heterosexual, but still experience some attraction to the same sex, placing them somewhere in the middle of a spectrum. I've known lots and lots of women who claim to be heterosexual, but give them an opportunity and they would definitely have a relationship, intimacy with another female.
The sexuality spectrum refers to the idea that people's sexual identities and orientations are complex and resist easy classification. Instead of offering people a choice between their homosexual, either homosexual or heterosexual, or even a choice between homosexual, heterosexual, or bisexual, it provides a way of talking about sexuality along the terms, in terms of many possibilities.
The sexuality spectrum also allows for greater fluidity of sexual identity and expression. You might change from one position to another or move about the spectrum. Long scale studies have supported both the idea that broad terms can be misleading for some people, and that people often have sexual orientation ranges rather than fixed orientations.
To some extent, the shift from categories or sexuality to a sexuality spectrum is a generational shift. Millennials increasingly prefer to identify themselves along a spectrum. However, the spectrum is neither a specifically millennial phenomenon nor a concept embraced by all millennials.
Different sexual orientation spectrum. Well, the spectrum itself isn't a singular entity. Instead of one line with complete homosexuality at the end and complete heterosexuality at the other, there are more than 200 scales people have developed to define sexuality. The three most commonly used scales are following.
The Kinsey scale. In 1948, Dr. Alfred Kinsey and his research partners published Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, the first landmark study to suggest that people didn't fit exclusively into the categories homosexual and heterosexual. Kinsey proposed a scale from 0 to 7, with 0 being exclusively heterosexual and 7 being exclusively homosexual.
There's only heterosexual, number one. Number two, mostly heterosexual, sometimes homosexual. Number three, mostly heterosexual, but more than sometimes homosexual.
Number 4, equally heterosexual and homosexual. Number 5, mostly homosexual, but more than sometimes heterosexual. Number 6, mostly homosexual, only sometimes heterosexual. And number 7, only homosexual.
Kinsey also provided for an additional category, X, no social sexual contacts or reactions. The Klein Sexual Orientation Grid. In 1978, Fritz Klein published the bisexual option. In it, he outlines a grid that asks people to rate 7 aspects of sexual orientation/identity from 1 to 7, with 1 being other sex heterosexual only and 7 being same sex homosexual only. The 7 aspects are
sexual attraction, number 1, sexual behavior, number 2, sexual fantasies, number 3, sexual emotional preference, number 4, social preference, number 5, heterosexual/homosexual lifestyle, number 6, and self-identification.
People are asked to rate each of these aspects for 3 categories: past, present, and ideal. Storm sexuality access. In 1981, Michael Storm wanted to better incorporate asexuality and differentiate it from bisexuality in sexual models. He theorized that sexuality was better discussed with respect to X and Y axis, with the X axis corresponding to homosexuality and the Y to heterosexuality.
A zero value along either would correspond to no orientation in that direction, and zero values along both axes would indicate total asexuality. All three of these models have been critiqued and supplemented in different ways, but they show a variety of ways of thinking about sexual orientation as occurring along a spectrum. They are tools for understanding. Different people find different models mostly helpful when it comes to articulating their own sexuality.
Other things can play a role in spectrum's sexuality. Kink fetish and bondage, dominance, sadism, and masochism, BDSM, activity can also be defined along spectrums and can play a role in the intersectional sexual identities that occur at the crossroad of a number of different aspects of human sexuality.
The asexuality spectrum. Asexuality can also be described along a spectrum. Many people have more complicated relationships with sexual desire than an asexual/sexual binary allows. Asexuals and aromantics were the first to develop the split attraction model, which can be applied outside of the asexuality spectrum as well.
The split attraction model proposes that for every sexual orientation / expression, there are also a romantic counterpart. For example, some may enjoy a certain type of romantic relationship or experience, but not wish to take it into a sexual arena.
Possibilities on the asexuality spectrum include asexual. You don't experience sexual attraction to other people. Even within this one category, there's a range of individual expressions and experiences. For example, some may not experience direct sexual attraction, but may enjoy the act of sex. Others may be repulsed by the idea of sexual contact. Still, others might enjoy solo sexual activities such as masturbation. You may see the contraction ace used as a label for asexual individuals.
So we have aromantic or aromantic. People in this group don't experience romantic attraction. As with asexuality, aromanticism can come in a variety of forms. Gray, asexual, or gray romantic. These terms apply to people who fall somewhere between asexual or aromantic and sexual or romantic. They're incredibly broad, and people who identify by one of the following terms may also identify as a gray sexual or gray romantic.
Demisexual, or demi-romantic. Demi-individuals don't experience initial sexual or romantic attractions to people. However, as time passes and relationships develop, sexual or romantic feelings may develop.
So reciprocal sexual or reciprocal romantic. Who knew there was all these different, and you've got these individuals that think things are just black or white, and they don't realize there's so many shades of gray.
It's all DEI to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So demi individuals don't experience reciprocal. You only experience attraction to someone after knowing they're attracted to you. Acosexual or acoromantic, you experience sexual or romantic attraction, but it goes away once you learn they are attracted to you too. Other names for this group includes aconic, acoin and sexual, acoin romantic, and lithsexual or lithromantic. Acephalux, aroflux. You move around within the asexual spectrum, or may even move outside of it at some point. So that explains a lot of people that, like, once they have the chase and they got the person, then they're no longer attracted. So it's a thing. I mean,
and I think, that's what people don't understand, especially in the Christian circles and the right-wing conservative. They want their women to be one type, and they want their men to be one type, and that's it. There's only straight, there's no gay, there's no bi, there certainly isn't any trans, that's for sure, But within the spectrum, like even in that Kinsey spectrum, they use the Kinsey scale to also categorize trans people, because trans people fall into different varying categories of their own transness.
Exactly.
So it's like there's like a definitive spectrum that is given to these types of expressions of humanity. It really is a blend of different types of individuals with varying degrees of sexuality or a lack of sexuality.
Exactly. And it's like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, that they think biology is a certain way, but they really don't understand biology. They don't understand at all how the complex human body operates. And it's not as black and white as they would love it to be. And that just comes from their archonic God that controls us based on these markers.
Well, the archonic God wants to instill in us the belief that this is all there is.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that this isn't all there is. This human experience that we're having in this physical reality isn't even it's really not even real.
I know.
So how can something define you that doesn't even exist? Because these bodies, they decompose.
Mm-hmm.
They shrivel up, they become part of the earth, they go into the elements of the earth, they contribute to maybe the nurturing, the growth of a plant,
Mm-hmm.
Or they feed an animal,
Mm-hmm.
And we are what that is. We are the earth that these bodies are. But our spirits, that's another discussion altogether. And they focus so much on this physical.
Yeah. Because that's how they control us. They control us via the physical. Because we are not understanding of the importance of our spiritual, our true essence of who we are, how vast and how powerful our spirit is. So they just keep us at this 3D level in fear, in guilt, in greed, in anger, and all these
in these bodies.
In these bodies, yeah.
Encased in these physical bodies, so that we're only relegated to what we can see, touch, feel, and hear.
I mean, look at what this whole campaign has been all about. Is about trying to witch hunt those of us that are trans. Now they're coming after the gays as well, and then they'll come out into interracial marriage, and they've already come against the immigrants and Hispanics and other people that are not American white as apple pie. We're seeing it more and more each day. That this administration is led by these Arconians that basically want to divide us so they could conquer. And they've been doing this throughout history. This is not the first rodeo.
What gets me is that Clarence Thomas has been a Supreme Court justice for many, many years now, and he is an African American. And he literally brought up in a dissertation or something, I don't know what they call it, but he's married to a white woman. So he himself has an interracial marriage going on. And he had the gall to bring it up as well, now that we've dealing with Roe v. Wade, now we can look towards the establishment of interracial marriage. I was like, but you're black.
I know.
What? You don't even make sense to your own self. I mean, you're going to negate your own existence.
Yeah. That's pretty sad. Anyway, gay marriage is on the butcher block. North Dakota's House lawmakers voted to support a resolution calling on the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn its ruling on gay marriage rights. It passed 52-40.
House Concurrent Resolution 3013 states that the ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges was an illegitimate overreach and shouldn't have happened.
But it did.
Representative Bill Schveit, our Republican opposing, argued the definition of marriage has been solely between a man and a woman for millennia. Of course, he's been around for millennia to know that. He said that some of the justices who supported the ruling should have recused themselves since they officiated same-sex marriage.
Now, let's take a look at this millennium. It's been between, do they not realize that there was life before the 1800s, that this whole Christian-based mentality was not even around? I mean, their religion is only 2,000 years old. The earth is billions of years old. There's been other species on this planet much more advanced than we've ever been. They didn't have this whole concept of prudeness and sex between a man and a woman or marriage. That's all these idiots, because that's the only thing I could call them. Their invention. It has not been around for millennium. It's just a reproductive means of control by the archons. We have become baby machines for them to create more slaves so they could have more mining of the gold and the stuff and the minerals that they take from this planet.
This has been a great model for them to have us be in, because it profits them.
Of course, because no making babies, there's no future slaves. There's no future social security number that tells the corporation you've got another slave on hand that's going to make us money. That's it. That's all they care about. Look at today with Trump. All he cares about is making the deal. We want the minerals. We can't guarantee you security, but we want your minerals. We're going to take, as they always do. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the masters of this universe, or this planet at least. All right, so I'd say a lot of these people have no backbone. Every single Republican in the House voted for this. And this is another bill that they're more afraid of the regime that they are of the furious voters. When people start going in the streets, and already people are protesting, it's starting out mildly, but it's going to get worse. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Representative Jasmine, writes,
"This is what a deal with the devil looks like. At House GOP just voted to cut Medicaid, SNAP benefits, school meals, and housing assistance, all in exchange for giving corporations and billionaires a tax cut, all at the expense of the middle class, and even more so of the poor and workers who are barely surviving as it is." What is it? A $7 wage or something like that, minimum wage. Who can get by on that? You can't even buy a burger.
I can't even buy a carton of eggs.
It's about to get much, much worse.
People have to look at the surrounding countries and what these other countries have gone through. Venezuela, Argentina, just a ton of countries where the same thing that's happening now, the rich are taking over, they're fooling the middle class, they're poo-pooing on the poor, and now that AI is on the picture, they need us less and less. So they're not really caring at all.
I mean, people think that Medicaid, cuts to Medicaid won't affect a lot of people, given the fact that, they have their state benefits or something like that. But Medicaid supplements every single United States state, so that, 60% of the funding for certain states comes from Medicaid. So if you cut Medicaid, then you're cutting the state insurance. You're cutting, Minnesota Care, for instance. In Minnesota, they get 60% of their income for Medicaid comes from them.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we talked earlier about protecting women. See how well this woman is being protected by these thugs, who I think there's some sort of like private security. They're the Brown something they're called. I'm just like, she's, and I don't know if this thing has.
To all of you who came here to hear the legislators, I applaud you for sitting there and quietly listening. I promise we will get back to you. In the meantime, we just got to be a little aggressive with some of these folks here. Here. Oh, no, I should be removed. I should be allowed to cry and yell and scream.
This is just the pictures out there of what they did to this woman. These thugs, they are not police, they're just some sort of security.
You out now! You out now! Let's go!
This man is assaulting me! Is this your deputy? Is this your deputy? No, don't fucking touch us! Is he a deputy?
No.
These are deputies! Who the fuck are these men?
So how about that?
These freaking animals. I mean, 3 guys. This is the protection. Nobody does anything. Nobody sits there and starts saying, they weren't police.
Cooperate, it'll be 100 times.
Yeah, that's what they say to rape victims, you fucking piece of shit. You refuse to identify yourselves. Who are you? Who are you?
Thank you for coming. But the problem is this. They didn't come here to listen. They came here.
Yeah, I know. Like, nothing to see here, folks. You know?
Please get up or be escorted out.
So, I mean, this is like pretty sad, you know? Pretty sad.
This is Trump's America.
Yeah, this is the fascist country that we are about to experience more and more each passing day. She speaks up at a town hall in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, is hauled off by hired thugs for calling out. Is this a lecture or a town hall? This city is a hub of Aryan Nation, white supremacists, by the way.
The men wore no badges or other security identification. Borenswell said she didn't recognize Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris at first when he approached her in the semi-darkness of the auditorium because he was dressed in jeans and a baseball cap. I was really dumbfounded because he said, "Do you want me to pepper spray you?" she recalled. That was the first thing he said to me that I remember.
Footage from the event showed Norris take Borenfall's arm with both hands and make multiple attempts to pull her from their seat. Borenfall said that after she declined to leave, Norris turned to the unidentified men and said, "Guys, get her."
On video, Borenswell can be seen repeatedly asking the men to identify themselves. They did not. She asked Norris if the men were his deputies, and he gave no answer. As the men dragged her down the aisle, Borenswell lost her shoe, and at one point, her shirt nearly came off.
It was really violent and really traumatic, she said. They had grabbed my wrists, they contorted my body, they lifted me up and dropped me down. My only thought was to maintain my airway. They were forcing me down on the ground. I just wanted to make sure I could still breathe.
Borenswell said she bit one of the men who was dragging her from the auditorium. I didn't know if I was being detained by what I now knew to be the sheriff's office, or if these were private hired guns, she said. I was so confused, and I didn't know if I was being arrested by the sheriff's office or if I was being kidnapped.
That's pretty scary. And you know, we're going to see that more and more with each passing day. I just don't understand how people don't see the danger that we're heading into, you know, that this is just.
It's troubling
Yeah.
to think that this is the America that we all live in now.
Mhm.
You know, when, you know, people are like, you know, acting like the old regime of the 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just trans people. You know, it's not just trans people that they're going to come after. We were just, you know, top of the list, but it's just progressively Women are at stake here. Minorities are at stake here. I mean, if you're not like them and you don't bow down to their wants and their needs, you're subject to their mistreatment and God knows what else.
I don't know if people realize it, but the United States has had a terrible reputation for dealing with other races and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to after Pearl Harbor, every Japanese in America was a suspect of being a spy. So the United States government literally made these people leave their homes and go to some form of a concentration camp out in the middle of nowhere. Some places in Utah, some places in Nevada, some places that were very, very poorly maintained. And they literally had them behind walls with their families, separated families. And, you know, some of these people had been in the United States for a long time. Maybe they came from China, you know, like 50 years before or something like that. And they had a business in San Francisco. They were pulled out. You know, people from Japan were pulled out. You know, I mean, everybody was like a suspect. If you were Asian, you were basically being hauled away from your life.
This country has a lot of history, you know, a lot of history. And I think at one point what we knew as Germany, that Nazi Germany, is coming back. And I think that they never really left. They just integrated themselves into this country and have slowly worked their way into where they are today. This has been a movement that has been in the background for quite a while. And surprise, surprise, it's here. It's here. I mean, it's like they are tearing up every institution so that it's going to be a complete collapse. It's going to be mayhem. And then they're going to come in because they create the problem to then find the solution. And the solution is always taking away more of your freedom. We don't have a clue what lies ahead. And it's not going to be pretty.
I thought it was an irony when I was at the gym. We were at the gym the other day, and I saw on the screen the old TV show, The Walton Family, the Waltons, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was I didn't see it, you know, like hear it, but I could see the captions. And it was a family from Germany that had relocated to that area to escape persecution from the Nazis and stuff, and HIT, right? And basically they were like, the father was like a doctor or something, and was, you know, they were, you know, Jewish probably, and they were being persecuted, so they left. And John Boy's asking questions like, but why do they have to leave their country? Well, because they're not allowed to work in it anymore. They're being sent off to camps now. And, you know, it's like, oh, the irony. You're watching a TV show in the 70s, from the 70s, talking about the atrocities. And we're about to fall into that same pattern right now.
Do we not see the color of this man's, like today, when he was having that fiasco with the president of Ukraine? He walked out, he had his red hat with his red tie. Do we not see what, I mean, these are symbolisms. These are symbolisms that people are missing. The writing has been all over the wall. And they're not going to hide it anymore.
And that's the thing, like with this this thing that happened over in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that's a stronghold. It's been for white supremacists and for the Aryan Nation. And like that one movie we saw where they were recruiting these young kids
men,
to be a part of.
And the church was part of that.
And the church was a part of it. And they used the playbook that actually the people during January 6th, they used when they invaded the Capitol building, you know. And now we have the people who deny it now leading this country, the people who raided it now free in this country.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those guys, they were, you know, they weren't uniformed. I mean, I think we've heard this before where somebody said, "Where's your badge? Where's your badge?"
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, these thugs come in because they're gladly, you know, the Proud Boys would gladly work to help out.
And that's what we're going to see, you know, and the church is going to be very much involved, just like the church was involved back in the HITLER era. They're reining it all in. It's all part with that whole of make America great again, make America like that one dude that was praying in that meeting they had with Trump and all the other individuals. And they I mean, it's just like, this is not a Christian nation. There are some Christians that live in America, but they're all different types of belief systems. There are different types of people, color, race, sexual preference, gender identity. That's what makes America America.
And you know, what's with signing all these crazy executive orders, like officially changing the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America, or renaming, you know, a national park back to like an old president, you know's name, or most recently, officially recognizing English as the official language of the United States. And, you know, this rubs me raw because I remember my own parents telling me that when they were in Puerto Rico, they were being forced to learn English when they didn't. Nobody spoke it. None of their family members spoke it. In the United States, just because it took Puerto Rico as a colony, as a commonwealth, they would call it, they literally said that the people in that country that spoke only Spanish, that they now had to speak English.
It's crazy. And it's like, if we were going to speak the true native language of this country, we would be speaking Navajo, Apache, all the different types of indigenous dialect that is the original dialect of this country. You guys came from Europe somewhere, created this hodgepodge language that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, you know, and are forcing it upon everyone. This is not an English-speaking country. This country has multi-languages, immigrants that have come throughout the world to make this place what it is today. You have no right to do what you're doing. And on that note, we're ending the show today with the breaking story of the Hollywood superstar Hunter Schafer of Euphoria and The Hunger Game, whose fame unleashes a fiery takedown of Donald Trump for changing her passport gender from female to male. F-U-C-K, this administration, she says. MAGA just picked a fight with one of Gen Z's biggest celebrities.
So I'm sure most of us remember on, I think, the first day of Trump's presidency, she writes, he signed an executive order to declare only two genders recognized by the state, male and female, assigned at birth. Schafer, who is trans, said in an 8-minute video shared to social media.
As a result of this, which I wrote down because I want to get it right, the Bureau of Consular Affairs has frozen passport applications requesting a gender marker change or renewals or new applications with a gender marker differing from an applicant's gender assigned at birth. She continued, I want to note that the biggest lawsuits need to come from this because many of us had surgery and did the things that we did in the promise that we were going to get our marker changed if we did what we did. Well, many of us did do all these things that we were asked to do, incurring medical problems and all sorts of different things. And now they want to renege it. It doesn't work that way.
So my initial reaction to this, because our president, you know, is a lot of talk, was I'll believe it when I see it. And today I saw it. She said, holding up her passport, which now states that she is male.
And she transitioned at a very young age as a teen. She revealed that she lost her previous passport last year while filming in Barcelona when someone broke into her car. She visited the Los Angeles Passport Agency this week to get a replacement, followed the proper procedures, and was stunned to discover that her gender marker had been changed.
Schaefer first had her gender marker changed to female when she was a teenager, when she got her first driver's license. All of her identification documents since then until now have been female. Now, I'm not making this post to fearmonger or to create like drama or receive consolation. I don't need it. But I do think it's worth posting to sort of note the reality of the situation and that it is actually happening. And I was shocked, said Schaefer, because I don't know. I just didn't think it was actually going to happen.
She acknowledges her privilege as a celebrity who is white, thin, and adheres to contemporary beauty standards who can pass, quote unquote, in public. But this still happened to her. This has led me to believe that I think the agencies who are in charge of passports and the sort of thing are now required to cross-reference birth certificates, she said.
Or I don't know exactly what changed as far as the processing goes, but this is the first time this has happened to me since I changed my gender marker, she explained. We're coming up on a new decade now or something, and I do believe it is a direct result of the administration our country is currently operating under.
And I guess I'm just sort of scared of the way this stuff slowly gets implemented, because things just sort of start happening. I think as we've seen in historical rises of fascism and everything, this new administration kind of represents, she continued.
There's a lot of talk and then things start happening. And when we start to normalize the circumstances we're under, and I just feel like it's important to share that. It's not just talk, that this is real and it's happening. And no one, no matter their circumstance, no matter how wealthy or white or pretty or whatever, is excluded, said Schaefer.
I wonder how Blair White's going to feel when she has to get her passport renewed. This is real. I also want to say I don't give an FUK that they put on M on my passport. It doesn't change really anything about me or my transness, said Schaefer. And that's true. I mean, that's empowering that they can do whatever. We're still who we are. What, they're going to kill us all?
I know. However, it does make life a little harder, she continued. Personally, I have tested it out, haven't tested it out yet. I'll find out next week when I have to travel abroad for the first time with my new passport. But I'm pretty sure it's going to come along with having to out myself with like Border Patrol agents and that whole gig much more often than I would like to or is really necessary.
I mean, they could have just given us a T, for crying out loud. I'd be fine with that, But it's that... And this is just my personal circumstance and thinking about other trans women who this might also be happening to, or other trans people. The list only gets longer as far as the intricacies that come along with the difficulty that this brings into like real life shit, she said.
This is getting very long, but I just wanted to say trans people are beautiful. We are never going to stop existing, said Schaefer. I'm never going to stop being trans. A letter on a passport can't change that. And FUCK, this administration, I don't really have an answer on what to do about this. But I feel it was important to share. This is real. So, F, she concluded.
Schaefer should be celebrated for her courage in the face of his hateful fascist administration. Trump is targeting transgender Americans because he knows that it excites the bigots who populate his base.
These anti-trans efforts are nothing more than a weaponized cruelty against some of society's most marginalized people. The time to take a stand is now.
Yeah, people didn't think this was going to happen, but it surely did. It's just, history repeating itself. We've always been prosecuted. We've always been demeaned. Demilitarized was the word I'm looking for. Dehumanized, demoralized, everything. And it wasn't that long ago, because all these new advocates that we've had in the past maybe 25 years, we're seeing it stripped again.
It gets really tricky because we're in the middle of all this too. We're married. Mm-hmm. I married you, you married me, and we have a marriage certificate.
Mhm.
So what does that do to a marriage certificate when the genders that were recognized in the marriage certificate no longer represent that? It's just a complicated soup, of a mess
Mhm.
that is just so unnecessary. There is no real viable proof that trans women are causing any disruptions to society.
Mhm.
There are always going to be weird people out there that have problems and issues, and they don't have to be trans to be that way.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be a problem. I mean, what are they going to do when they pull a trans woman out of a woman's prison and she had full-on surgery and she goes to be in a men's prison? That person's going to be torn up to shreds, literally,
Yeah.
by the men there.
It's
What's going to happen when a trans man who is attracted to women now goes into a women's prison and has a fellow? I mean, what takes place there? These are the questions that they refuse to even discuss, I mean, and then you've got some people in these different blogs and stuff I've seen, this one guy who was totally talking about the negation of trans people. He's called the reality stands or something like that. In his blog, he mentions Aman Khalif, and he mentions the guy, the boxer from Taiwan or whatever it was, or that was, she's a woman. Aman Khalif is a woman, but he insists on propagating the lie that these are men.
I don't know.
Without I mean, our own president says that boys go into a doctor's office and come out as girls, afterwards.
Or in school.
At a school.
Yeah.
It just happens. It just happens in a couple hours, they go to the nurse's
It's ignorance.
office.
They've always been ignorant when they used to burn the so-called witches at the stake. It's that same town people's mentality, that same ignorance, that same Christianese propaganda, the lack of brain cells. There's nothing else that you could say about that. Oh, and now, it's going to be, he's going to create something where people can't talk badly about Christians. I mean, we're living in the United States of America. Freedom of speech gives us the right to speak the way we want to speak. If you don't like someone, you can tell them. If you don't agree with a belief system, you should be allowed to speak your mind about it. That's what made America different from other countries. But I guess, it's all been an illusion and it's all been a lie. Okay, so AI has officially crossed the critical red line. They can self-replicate. A new study from Fudan University has revealed that AI models can replicate themselves without human intervention, raising concerns about the potential for rogue AIs. And that's going to be the next craziness.
Researchers tested Meta's Llama 31 70B instruct model and Alibaba's Qwen 2.5 72B instruct model, finding that these AI systems successfully clone themselves in 50% and 90% of trials, respectively. This capability describes as a critical red line in AI development, suggests that AI could potentially multiply beyond human control.
The study explores two scenarios, one where AI avoided shutdown by replicating itself, and another where replication occurred in a continuous chain. Remember the movie we saw the other day? The AI woman? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Highlighting how AI might evolve unpredictably. While the research has yet to be peer-reviewed, its findings serve as a stark warning about the risk of unchecked AI development.
The implications of self-replicating AI extend far beyond theoretical concerns, as these models demonstrated an ability to solve problems dynamically, even altering system functions to ensure their survival.
What's that movie that I'll be back? Terminator? Researchers observed behaviors such as terminating conflicting process, rebooting system, and scanning for missing files, actions earlier remnants of autonomous problem solving. The study authors urge immediate interrational collaboration to establish safeguards against uncontrolled AI replication.
With frontier AI evolving at an unprecedented pace, experts stress that understanding and mitigating these risks is crucial before self-replicating AI systems become an irreversible reality.
Terminator. I mean, you know,
all I can say is if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. And playing with AI is playing with sentient life of another kind. It's something that we don't understand, but this AI's been around. It's not like we created it. We just discovered it now. We're like aware of it now, but we didn't like make it. We didn't create it. It's been around, and now it's like it's letting us see it.
Yeah.
You know, for the first time in our like modern world that we have.
People don't know the third of it. I mean, if you look at some of these hieroglyphics and drawings and things and books, even in your own Bible, you know, there are things that talk about these type of artificial intelligence. But we're going to see, you have to say it's exciting times because it's like we're living in a movie, literally.
Yeah, we got dropped off on the plot of a movie, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, would you have thought, I mean, you and I have been together almost 10 years now, that in this 10 years time, the life is going to look the way that it's looking?
No, we were living in a much different world in 2014 and 15. You know, I mean, it was a world that had just, you know, the president at the time, President Obama, had literally gone to Cuba to meet with the leaders there, you know, and he literally extended an arm, a handshake of friendship. The United States Embassy opened up again. There was tourism to that country. We thought we were on the cusp, you know, we got like, you know, there was gay marriage was legalized and you know, a lot more people were free to express. There was more understanding. There was more like, you know, it was like a world that was evolving and growing, and humans were like interacting and getting along with each other. Whereas now, it's like the Democrats and the Republicans are like the Hatfields and the McCoys, and you know the Trump, you know, train has literally all the extremists have taken over the Republican Party. The Republican Party has literally gone extinct. And
the Democratic Party are walking around with their tails behind their, you know, in between their legs and not really doing much of anything.
The Democratic Party is bought and sold by the corporation. Yeah. So they, you know, they have their own interests in mind and stuff. And then they use these little, you know, symbols of support for, you know, I mean, something like before Biden left, he could have done something to prevent certain freedoms to be stripped away from the LGBTQ community, you know, to protect trans people. He could have done something and turned it into a law that would not be able to be repealed. But he didn't. It's like they knew what was coming, but they just let it happen, you know.
It's but you know, both wings belong to the same bird. I think it's all been a production, getting us to believe certain things, but in the end, they both are puppeted by the elite, and the elite is a bloodline that are not from this planet, and we will soon just, that rude awakening is going to be so harsh.
I think one of the things that really ticked off Trump was when Zelensky mentioned that, you know, yes, we have a big ocean that divides us, but if you don't act, the peril may come to you. And,
yeah.
and then he just got like all flustered by it.
Until
like,
it comes to you, not
until it comes to
and
you.
he just like, oh no, it won't. Like,
who are you to say
that
it's going to come to us? It's like, he's like, well, if you don't, I mean, megalomaniacs, dictators from other countries, they, Ukraine, not all people understand the geography of Ukraine, but Ukraine is a buffer between the Russians and the rest of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So if Ukraine falls,
mm-hmm.
that means that Russia will then reassess its dominance and try to claim all the old Baltic states back into the Russian Federation. It will cause problems for NATO. It'll cause problems for Germany and Poland. And, because Poland, it was part of them too. They were part of the Soviet Union, Iron Curtain, they call it, and whatever. And we know Putin was a part of the KGB. He has never left his communist roots, his heart.
All I can say is right on. It's like Trump thinks that Putin is his friend, and he doesn't realize what, like Zelensky said, is going to come here too.
Yeah.
But they don't believe it. People think, America's
Or
untouchable.
China.
Yeah. People think America's untouchable.
I mean, I can't imagine that the president of the United States would sit down with any world leader and excoriate them like that. I don't think that if Putin ever made it to the Oval Office, that the president of the United States and the vice president would have ever had the audacity to treat a sitting president of a sovereign nation the way that the president and the vice president did today. It was a show of weakness by the American government. The American people should be outraged, should be disgusted at the kind of leadership that we have. The United States is no longer, the president of the United States is no longer the leader of the free world.
No.
It's just, that's not even, there's, that stopped, because our president is a felon, is a liar, and doesn't care about human life.
No.
All he cares about are minerals,
money,
and power, and his own ego.
Yeah, that's it. That's about it. So, I don't know what's going to happen, but it doesn't look too good.
It doesn't.
But,
I mean, even Europe has to now look at itself and go, well, we thought we had an ally in the United States, but do you realize that for the first time in ever, the United States literally voted with Russia, with North Korea? I mean, in an amendment to keep the Ukraine-Russian conflict going. It's like Russia's the aggressor.
Yeah.
Ukraine's never been the aggressor here.
But it's no different than what's happening in the Strip in Gaza and Israel. I mean, it's like, okay, which of these things belong together? Which are the ones that look the same? That kind of Sesame Street thing. But, it's going to bite us. It's going to bite us. That movie that the Obamas produced, I think that's going to end up being truer than true. Things don't look good. The economy doesn't look good.
They don't. I mean,
nothing looks good.
There's a problem in America, and I think it's something that should really, really, really concern us all.
Yeah.
Because we're living in this country, and we're watching it destroy itself.
Yeah, falling apart. But
either by, by a plan to destroy this country from the inside out.
Yeah, I think that's what's actually happening. I truly believe that, there's a storm a coming, and humanity. I mean, we've already taken that turn. I don't think there's any way back away from that turn. Humanity will look at the past. And maybe we won't remember. Maybe it'll be a reset. Maybe something will happen as it's happened before. But
I remember when I heard that Nikita Khrushchev, he was president of the leader of the Soviet Union back when JFK was president. And he literally said, I don't know if he told this to Castro or back in the 60s, whatever he said it, but he said, the fall of the United States will come from within. It will like a ripened piece of fruit. It will just splay open.
Yep.
You know, and we can't like rule out the fact that we're seeing this portions of this taking place. I mean, there's been a systematic like dissection of our American government in the last 30 days that has never occurred in the history of this country. I mean, literally.
Another plane just had crashed or something. There's this plant, a lithium plant in Missouri, did I say it was, that exploded. I mean, just every day, there's 2 or 3 things that are happening. The weather conditions are like
they
crazy.
Just fired National Weather Service forecasters, people at NOAA who's been doing atmospheric predictions, who keep their eyes on the weather patterns that are affecting and that do unimaginable like jobs that people take for granted, and Doge just took the bulldozer to it. You know, I mean, it's
never in the history of this country has that ever happened, where you've got this billionaire dude that owns a social media platform and has sent some satellite up to the sky and owns a little car company, has literally like given these job to like slash and fire and do whatever he wants and create a new label. What is it? The Department of something.
Doge.
Yeah. It's like that's never happened before.
There's been no congressional approval of
he wasn't voted in. He
wasn't department. There's no department. It's just some creation by this administration. It's not been. It hasn't passed congressional approval.
Does anybody that's watching have any opinions? Please write your comments down on the show. And while you're at it, remember to subscribe and hit that notification button.
It's sad. That's why we are making life changes.
Yeah, life changes that are overdue. Because if you continue to support this matrix and continue to support the system and those that run it, nothing will ever change. Today was a day that there was supposed to be no one shopping anything online. There's like a whole, for the next 4 or 5 months, there are different boycotts and different things that are taking place. Because, I mean, you take people's Twinkies away, you take people's Amazon away, you take people's whatever, they're going to keep buying and purchasing. How is anything going to change?
Yeah.
It's like you got to stop being so freaking materialistic. Because the carrot stick that they dangle in front of you to get you where they want, it's what's creating this reality that you're living in. You can't take it with you when you go. I don't know how many times I have to say that. Realize what really matters, not what they tell you matters. Act of rebellion. You speak through your dollar. Don't give them your dollar. Don't support these corporations. Watch them crumble. Anyway, that's all we got for tonight. And heavy stuff. We will soon reveal, probably as we're doing it, when we're doing it, we'll reveal our new plan.
All I have to say is lots of changes are coming.
Yeah, lots and lots of changes. All right, guys. Subscribe, hit notification button, share. Thank you for tuning in, those of you that tuned in, even though you're very quiet. But you know,
Whoever's watching.
yeah, whoever's watching, thank you. We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. Good night. Bye. Well, I'm not gonna do that little thing because